talking about. That's why he's the MVP. That's why he's the GOAT. The GOAT.
With the All-Star game about a month away, a little under a month now, I wanted to give you my All-Star ballot. So I made this graphic to show the starters, and I'll just talk about the bench. I don't need to give a graphic for the bench. So there's 12 East, 12 West, 2 starting guards, 3 starting forwards, 2 guards off the bench, 3 forwards off the bench, and there's 2 wild cards, which can be forwards, they can be centers, they can be whatever the hell. This made it incredibly hard. It made it really hard because the guard position is so heavy. There's so many good guards in the league that it made it really hard to say this guy deserves it more than this guy. When this guy's a center, he maybe doesn't deserve it as much as this point guard, but this point guard doesn't have a spot. So they want to change it a little bit. That would be pretty cool because, yeah, this wasn't super easy to figure out. But anyway, we'll start with the Western Conference. So the first player that I have here with he doesn't need to have an explanation, Stephen Curry. Now, Stephen Curry may not be the MVP candidate that he was at the beginning of the year. I personally don't think he's an MVP candidate really anymore. I think he's fallen out of the top 5, but he still is very deserving of this starting All-Star spot. He's been a little off and on past couple of weeks, but still Stephen Curry, still having an amazing year. The other locks that I have in the West for starters, Nikola Jokic, 100% going to be an All-Star starter. He is overtaken Stephen Curry, the MVP candidacy in my eyes. Just having an amazing year. When he doesn't play or when he's on the bench, the Nuggets look absolutely terrible. So you've got to give him the starting spot. Next up, lock, LeBron James. No questions about it. LeBron James, at 37 years old, is playing center for the LA Lakers and has Russell Westbrook as a teammate. Now, the last 2 spots here, the last guard and the last forward spot. For the last forward spot, I was choosing between Draymond Green and Paul George to be my last starter. And I'm leaning towards Paul George. Paul George may not play for the rest of the year, but when he was playing super well. He was the only reason to watch the Clippers. The Clippers without him have been struggling a lot. So that's why I give it to him. And I think he will be an injury replacement. Someone like Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Andrew Wiggins will replace him. So heads up, those people aren't on my bench. The last spot in the West was between 3 players, between Luca, between Donovan Mitchell, and between Ja Morant. And I ended up going with Ja Morant. Him and the Grizzlies are on an 11-game winning streak right now, and he's the main focal point of that offense. So I wanted to lean towards him because his team's just red hot, and he's more than deserving. Now, if Donovan Mitchell gets in there as a starter, sounds fine, but the Jazz have been struggling recently without Rudy Gobert, so I'd rather give it to the player whose team's actually performing really well right now with him playing. Now the locks in the East. Joel Embiid. DeMar DeRozan. MVP candidate DeMar DeRozan. And he will be accompanied by another Chicago Bull. Maybe not a starter, but there will be another Chicago Bull in here. He's hit 2-game winners in like 3 weeks. Actually, they were back-to-back. And he's just revitalized his career with Chicago. Now, he's always been good. I've always loved DeMar DeRozan. But now the world can really see it. Giannis. Kevin Durant. Don't really need an explanation. And then the last guard spot in the East was between Trae Young and Zach LaVine, in my eyes. I went Trae Young. Now, while his team isn't necessarily good as the Bulls are. The Hawks are kind of struggling. They just traded away Cam Reddish. I believe that it's obviously not due to Trae Young. Trae Young's having a great year, and I think he will get the last starter spot. So these are my 10 starters. Now, if you want to put, like I said, Donovan Mitchell over John Morant or like Zach LaVine over Trae Young, be my guest. However, this is kind of what I have. So for the bench players, I wanted to go through the bench players, and now I didn't make a graphic, like I said, but the bench players. In the West, my two guards coming off the bench were Luca and Donovan Mitchell. Donovan Mitchell's team is kind of struggling right now, but he's still Donovan Mitchell. He's perfected almost every part of his offensive game. Defensively, still a little bit left to be desired. Luca's missed a lot of time this year. A lot of it dealing with COVID. His team, or the Mavs, went on a 6-game winning streak before getting slaughtered by the Knicks a couple of days ago. So, and he's not playing super great, but he's still averaging like 20, 11, and 8 over that span. So, forwards, Draymond Green. Draymond Green probably right now is the defensive player of the year. Karl Anthony Towns. While the Wolves aren't a playoff lock, he's playing well enough to get rewarded with an all-star spot. The Timberwolves are about where they are. They're performing a little bit higher than they usually do, so good for him. And then Rudy Gobert. Without the Rudy Gobert, the Jazz have lost 4 in a row. They lost to the Pistons. They're terrible defensively, but when you do give them Rudy Gobert, he's killing it. He was taking mid-range jumpers earlier this year. Now, I think he stopped that, but he's still good enough defensively to warrant an all-star spot. And just because the forward spot is so weak, in my opinion, you're able to give it to him. Now, my 2 wildcard spots go to 2 Suns players, Chris Paul and Devin Booker. Now, personally, I want to see like Shai Gilgeous-Alexander or DeJounte Murray get in, but Chris Paul and Devin Booker are far more deserving than all of those players. So my injury reserves, because someone's gonna get injured, someone's not gonna play, someone's gonna opt out due to COVID, was Kristaps Porzingis, Anthony Edwards, Anthony Davis, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and DeJounte Murray. I hope one of these sneaks in. Someone's gonna have to play for Paul George, I assume, but we'll see who. In the East, my bench guards, Zach LaVine and James Harden. Now, James Harden started off the season a little bit weaker than we are used to James Harden playing, but he's still playing at an all-star level, and that tells you how good James Harden is when he's playing below average. He's still an all-star, debatably an all-star starter, but not in my eyes. The forwards off the Eastern Conference. Now, this is where I wish I could give a forward spot to a guard. Jared Allen is super deserving, having a great year. He got the bag from the Cleveland Cavaliers, and people were kind of hesitant on why did they give it to him. This is why they gave it to him. Playing great defensively, playing great offensively. Jason Tatum. The Celtics have been really underperforming this year, and Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown have been pretty good. Is it time to break them up? I don't think so. I think they need a real point guard, and I think they need a better center to put them over the edge, but we'll see. And my last forward spot, I gave it to Jimmy Butler. Now, the Miami Heat are very good. Don't get me wrong. They're one of the top, I think they're the 4th seed right now in the East. Jimmy Butler's missed a lot of time due to injury. He just got injured in the Warriors game about a week ago now. He got injured in the Warriors game about a week ago. But he was so good at the beginning of the year. He was an MVP candidate for like the first 3 weeks of the season. That I thought he still deserved it just because the forward spot is so weak. Other names you could put here is like Chris Middleton. But Chris Middleton has had kind of a down season. But like I said, I wish I could give one of these forward spots to a guard because I think the guards are just more deserving of it this year. My 2 wildcard spots are point guards, and they were between 4 players. It was between Bradley Beal, LaMelo Ball, Fred VanVleet, and Darius Garland. Now, the player I want to see the most out of these 4 make the All-Star team is Darius Garland. I mean, let's see if I can. I got Darius Garland on the back of my phone. I really, really like Darius Garland, but I don't have him in here. His on and off numbers are really good with the Cleveland Cavaliers. I also don't have Bradley Beal. I have Fred VanVleet and LaMelo Ball. Now, I think Bradley Beal's struggling at the beginning of the year really hurts him. His team right now is kind of on a downward stretch. Kyle Kuzma has been averaging not averaging, but he's been getting 20 and 20 games for them. So I give it to LaMelo Ball, who's the face of the franchise, one of the up-and-coming faces of the NBA. He's a super exciting player to watch. He's the reason the Charlotte Hornets are any good. If you put in another point guard, let's say you put in, I don't know, Ricky Rubio to the Charlotte Hornets, they wouldn't be as good. Now, Ricky Rubio is a good starting point guard, but he's not LaMelo Ball. And then my last spot is Fred VanVleet. Fred VanVleet was the hardest decision out of all of these players because he is the smallest name out of the 4 of these players. The 4 of these players, or the other 3 players, that get national attention. They're on ESPN. Fred VanVleet, not so much. But without him, the Raptors are terrible. When he's on the bench, he gets the Nikola Jokic treatment, where if he's not in the game, the Raptors suck. And he's been averaging like 30 in the past nine days, I think it was. But he's been on a tear. So those are my 12 players. And with injury reserves being Bradley Beal and Darius Garland, Chris Middleton, Drew Holiday also have arguments. It feels weird not giving the Bucks 2 All-Stars when they're one of the best teams in the East right now. Just smoked the Warriors by like 20 last night. But it was hard this year because so many guards deserve it. Even out in the West, there's 3 guards I have on my injury replacement. I think the NBA should reformat, but we'll see. Now, this isn't exactly what I think will happen. This is who I would give my vote to if I had a media vote, which I don't. But obviously, vote for whoever you want. Thank you for watching. Deuces.